Disbelief in Dalton Thursday evening as Chicago's former mayor, who was hired to investigate Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard's administration, revealed the shocking spending of taxpayer dollars.
Drama in Dalton. Credit card transactions amounting to thousands of dollars without explanation and millions more owed to vendors.
A bombshell report highlights just how much financial trouble the village of Dalton is really.
They say the village is facing financial disaster and they blame the mayor for mismanagement. She says this is all just political.
Residents of Dalton and Thornton Township, long aware of their community's financial struggles, were shocked by revelations from former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot that uncovered a much deeper fiscal crisis than anyone had imagined. The area is now facing millions in debt, a situation that has only worsened over the years. Frustrated citizens have demanded the resignation of Tiffany Henyard, mayor of Dalton and supervisor of Thornton Township, but their calls have been ignored. Henyard has shown no remorse or willingness to address the growing accusations of corruption, favoritism, and financial mismanagement that have plagued her time in office. Instead, her administration has become a hotbed of controversy, with accusations of embezzlement, misuse of taxpayer funds, and reckless decision-making overshadowing any positive actions taken during her tenure. Despite widespread outcry, Henyard's apparent indifference to the concerns of her constituents has fueled even more resentment and distrust. The announcement of an FBI investigation into her conduct has served as a turning point, sending shockwaves through a community that had grown accustomed to broken promises and political theater. Evidence of Henyard's actions continues to mount, painting a bleak picture of leadership where personal agendas have repeatedly taken precedence over the public good. Allegations of lavish spending, including taxpayer-funded luxury vacations, expensive purchases, and wasteful projects, have led many to believe that Henyard is intentionally draining Dalton and Thornton Township's finances before her tenure ends. This financial mismanagement and unethical behavior extend beyond the misuse of funds. They reflect a broader failure in leadership and responsibility. Residents are questioning how one individual could so openly undermine public trust and erode the financial foundation of their community. Adding insult to injury, Lightfoot's review of Dalton's finances uncovered a staggering $36.5 million deficit in the village's general fund, a finding that has become a symbol of Henyard's administration failures. The deficit encapsulates years of neglect and misappropriation, pushing the community to the brink of collapse. Public outrage has grown as reports surface of Henyard using public funds for personal indulgences, such as extravagant travel and an $85,000 personal audit. These revelations have cemented her image as a leader disconnected from the struggles of her constituents. The fallout has been especially damaging for Thornton Township, which is also under Henyard's jurisdiction. Crucial services like insurance, senior transportation, and food assistance have been threatened due to administrative failures. These hardships underscore the human cost of her leadership, with vulnerable populations bearing the brunt of decisions made for personal gain. For some residents, the ongoing FBI investigation represents a glimmer of hope, a potential pathway to justice and accountability. Many view it as a necessary intervention after years of local efforts to curb Henyard's unchecked power. Her refusal to address these growing issues has deepened suspicions about her motives, with critics accusing her of deliberately stalling while public resources are funneled for her own benefit. Henyard's frequent absences from critical township meetings, particularly those focused on resolving the insurance crisis, have only added to the perception that she is indifferent to the community's well-being. Prominent critics, including trustees like Chris Gonzalez, have warned of the dangerous implications of such neglect, emphasizing that issues like insurance and essential services are not just political matters, they directly impact people's lives. The worsening state of affairs has sparked calls for a complete leadership overhaul, with hopes of rebuilding Dalton and Thornton Township from the ashes of mismanagement and restoring financial stability and integrity to the community.
From multiple sources that federal agents are in fact interviewing witnesses as part of a possible investigation that may or may not result in charges.
The controversy surrounding Tiffany Henyard intensified as she became the target of numerous complaints, particularly from local business owners. Some of the most disturbing allegations involve claims that businesses were unfairly targeted and shut down simply for refusing to support political events backed by Henyard. These accusations paint a troubling picture of an administration accused of using its power for personal and political vendettas, rather than focusing on fostering a thriving local economy. Business owners describe an atmosphere of fear and retaliation, where failing to align with the mayor's agenda could lead to sudden and unjust regulatory actions, including arbitrary fines or outright closures. This behavior has severely strained the relationship between Henyard's administration and the business community, deepening public distrust. Critics argue that such actions reflect an abuse of power, prioritizing personal political gain over the economic health of the businesses that contribute to the town's prosperity. The ripple effect of these actions has spread beyond the business sector, with residents expressing outrage over what they see as a blatant disregard for fair governance and ethical leadership. Henyard's detractors point to these incidents as further evidence of an administration that consistently prioritizes self-interest over the well-being of the community, fueling increasing calls for transparency, accountability, and her removal from office. These allegations, combined with mounting evidence of financial mismanagement and other scandals, have alienated a significant portion of the public, reinforcing the belief that her leadership is no longer viable. While Henyard has denied any wrongdoing, dismissing the claims as baseless attacks, her failure to respond meaningfully to the concerns of both business owners and citizens has only deepened the crisis. This alleged misuse of power has added another layer to an already complex web of accusations, leaving many to wonder whether Henyard's administration can recover from the mounting backlash or if these events mark the beginning of the end of her political career.
Down Pablo's Bar and Cafe and Rinky's Bar and Cafe, both located on Sibley, about a block apart.
Everything going peacefully. Nothing going on. It's like 10 police cars came in and they start pushing customers from here. And he said, if you don't leave, we're going to lock.
The controversy surrounding Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard escalated as both employees and business owners accused her of an ongoing campaign of harassment that has resulted in lost jobs and financial hardship. Several business owners claimed their licenses were revoked by the village, even though they continued to operate under state jurisdiction. As tensions grew, former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot was appointed to investigate Henyard's alleged illicit activities. This decision marked a critical turning point in the unfolding scandal, and Henyard's response was swift and combative. Her administration seemed intent on undermining Lightfoot's efforts from the start. Henyard's initial strategy was to deflect responsibility, attempting to shift the blame for the growing problems in Dalton and Thornton Township onto the village trustees. This move not only deepened existing divisions within local government but also further alienated Henyard from an increasingly skeptical public. Despite mounting evidence of financial mismanagement and corruption, Henyard continued to deny any wrongdoing, dismissing Lightfoot's investigation as politically motivated and designed to tarnish her reputation. However, as Lightfoot's investigation progressed, it became clear that Henyard's administration had been involved in a pattern of financial mismanagement and corruption. The investigation revealed troubling financial practices, unexplained deficits, and a series of irregularities that pointed directly back to Henyard. Still, Henyard dismissed the findings, framing the inquiry as a personal attack on her leadership. As Lightfoot's probe deepened, it uncovered evidence that Henyard had misused taxpayer funds for extravagant expenses, justifying them as community improvements that ultimately provided little benefit to residents. Lavish travel, costly personal perks, and questionable contracts became emblematic of an administration accused of prioritizing self-interest over the needs of its constituents. Henyard's resistance to the investigation only fueled public outrage, and the deeper Lightfoot dug, the more troubling the details became. Lightfoot's findings illustrated a consistent pattern of financial waste and a lack of transparency in decision-making. Yet, Henyard and her supporters continued to argue that she was the victim of a smear campaign orchestrated by political rivals, asserting that the systemic problems she inherited upon taking office were the root cause of Dalton's financial woes. Meanwhile, an increasing number of residents and officials called for accountability, viewing Henyard's attempts to deflect blame as desperate and unconvincing. As the investigation continued, the divide between Henyard's defenders and her critics grew wider. Supporters maintained that the mayor was unfairly targeted and that the issues she faced were beyond her control. Critics, however, saw her actions as a direct attempt to avoid responsibility for her administration's failures. This widening divide set the stage for more political conflict, with calls for Henyard's resignation growing louder, accompanied by protests and demands for immediate corrective action to restore integrity to local governance. Each new revelation from Lightfoot's investigation seemed to confirm the worst fears of Henyard's detractors, further eroding public trust in her leadership. Despite the mounting pressure, Henyard remained defiant, refusing to step down and instead doubling down on her claims of innocence. Her resistance only deepened the perception that she was unwilling to take responsibility for her administration's actions. The longer she clung to power, the more entrenched the public's belief became that Henyard was unwilling to implement the necessary reforms to address the growing crisis. Amidst the chaos, Lightfoot's investigation continued to expose deeper issues within Henyard's administration, including allegations of favoritism and unethical conduct. These findings underscored the broader challenges facing Dalton and Thornton Township, highlighting the urgent need for structural reforms and competent leadership. The impact of Lightfoot's investigation reverberated far beyond Henyard's office, becoming a rallying cry for those seeking to reclaim their community from political dysfunction. For Lightfoot, the investigation underscored the importance of transparency and accountability in governance, even as she faced criticism from Henyard's loyalists and political factions trying to protect their own interests. As Henyard's administration faltered under the weight of public scrutiny and the findings of the investigation, it became clear that the story of her time in office was no longer just a local issue. It had become a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, the consequences of failed leadership, and the resilience of a community determined to demand better. Whether or not Henyard ultimately faces legal or political consequences for her actions, her legacy is already defined by the scandals that overshadowed her tenure. The lessons of her administration about the importance of accountability, transparency, and the responsibilities of public office will continue to resonate long after her political career ends. As Dalton and Thornton Township look to rebuild, the deep scars left by Henyard's leadership will serve as a stark reminder of the dangers of neglecting public trust and the critical need for ethical governance.
Chaos. Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard at the helm of the village's first packed meeting since Dalton trustees passed a resolution last month requiring her to turn over the village's financial records and asking the FBI to investigate her alleged misuse of village funds. The mayor admits to a $2 million deficit, but trustees say
Tiffany Henyard's attempt to involve the FBI in investigating her own behavior was both audacious and, ultimately, damaging to her credibility. Likely trying to assert her innocence or shift the focus away from local investigations, Henyard proposed federal intervention. However, her move backfired when the Board of Trustees swiftly countered her proposal with a decisive majority vote to override her veto. This action starkly highlighted the deepening rift between Henyard and local government officials, underscoring the board's lack of confidence in her leadership. For many residents, Henyard's call for the FBI's involvement seemed less about seeking truth and accountability and more about trying to control the narrative. Critics saw it as a desperate attempt to deflect attention from the growing allegations of corruption, financial mismanagement, and ethical breaches that had come to define her time as mayor. The decision to override her veto not only reinforced the trustees' determination to maintain local oversight but also emphasized Henyard's increasing isolation within the corridors of power. The optics of the situation were particularly damaging. Henyard's proposal to invite federal involvement was interpreted by some as an implicit acknowledgement of the severity of the issues she was facing. Others saw it as a tactic to shift the focus away from local accountability. The swift and decisive vote to nullify her veto sent a clear message of defiance, rejecting what many viewed as a futile and misguided maneuver. This episode added another layer of controversy to an administration already embroiled in scandal. Henyard's critics framed the moment as further evidence of her inability to govern effectively or navigate the political landscape of Dalton and Thornton Township. Observers noted how the incident showcased her growing tendency to prioritize self-preservation over genuine leadership, especially as her administration became bogged down in allegations ranging from lavish spending to the misuse of taxpayer funds. While pressing community needs went unmet. The community's response was telling, with residents voicing frustration over the spectacle that had replaced functional governance. Many saw Henyard's attempt to involve the FBI as an unnecessary diversion from the urgent local issues that needed immediate attention. With local services under strain, rampant financial mismanagement, and trust in government institutions at an all-time low, residents felt that addressing these issues head-on should have been the priority, rather than engaging in what they saw as a performative gesture. For the Board of Trustees, their decision to override Henyard's veto was not just a rejection of an ill-conceived proposal, it was a firm statement of their commitment to maintaining local control and accountability during a time of escalating crisis. The trustees were determined to take charge and prevent further disruption caused by Henyard's erratic decision-making. Their vote symbolized a collective effort to stabilize a fractured administration and restore a semblance of governance.
And this is just a process to drag it along, but everybody sees what's going on.
The village under Henyard's leadership is cracking down on access, pushing media at tonight's meeting to the very back of the room, almost out of sight of public comment from residents. But their voices were loud and clear.
Everybody cares about the person that's making a mess.
Henyard placing the blame elsewhere.
But only judge when you got both sides of the story, not one side narrative, which is negative narrative.
Under Tiffany Henyard's leadership, the village has increasingly restricted access to meetings, pushing the media to the far back of the room, almost out of sight during public comment. Despite these efforts, residents' voices were loud and clear. You lie to us as residents, you do not stand for me, and I want you to step down as mayor today and save our village from the deficit that you caused. One resident exclaimed. Another added, the mayor can blame everyone else for what's going on, but she needs to look at herself. Nobody told her to get on TV and act like that. Everyone cares except the person making the mess and placing the blame elsewhere. But you can only judge when you hear both sides of the story, not just one negative narrative. Henyard has consistently portrayed herself as innocent, dismissing the criticism as prejudice against black women. However, she has refused to answer questions about her infamous trip to Las Vegas, where she allegedly spent thousands of taxpayer dollars on lodging, meals, and airfare.
We stand together at this time and this moment. This is what we got this people, right? Y'all all saying our true candidate. So guess what? I am you. Don't forget I am the leader. They want to hear from the mayor. If y'all ain't learned that yet. Of course I'm going to give away $1 million to help you pay your mortgage and your rent. Of course I am. The mayor, not the trustees that don't do nothing, that only run their mouth. We getting scrutinized in the meeting. For what? Loving on the people, showing them that they matter to us. We going through the fires for y'all.
When it was revealed that Tiffany Henyard had embezzled millions of dollars from the general fund, with other alleged embezzlements still unaccounted for, she seemed to disappear. She avoided news outlets and any attempts to contact her. The general fund, which covers day-to-day operations, was left in the red with a staggering $3.65 million deficit. Police department expenditures had risen by 21%, with 2 officers receiving more in overtime pay than their regular salaries. By June 18, 589 checks totaling over $6 million had been approved but never sent to vendors. 6 different credit cards were used for purchases, but receipts were rarely provided. Among the suspicious charges under investigation was $440,000 spent on Amazon. You may hear many things, but I can assure you the financial information is clear, one official stated.
I knew we were broke, and the way she broke it down and just let the other residents hear what was really going on, because Tiffany Henyard always talk about fake news.
It was also uncovered that the village had excessively used credit cards. Despite repeated requests for an interview, Mayor Tiffany Henyard did not respond to any questions and was reported to be absent from the building. Village staff could not provide a timeline for when she would return. The following day, at a packed community meeting, the Board of Trustees emphasized the facts, highlighting that Henyard's actions were far from those of a leader serving the people. They pointed out that she had used public funds to support her extravagant lifestyle, revealing a troubling pattern of financial mismanagement and a clear disregard for the well-being of the community.
The village's credit card spending is out of control. Mayor Tiffany Henyard didn't respond to any of my requests today, and I'm told she's not in the building. No response to repeated interview requests. I tried to track down Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard in person today. Village employees told me she wasn't in the office and didn't say when she would be, a day after this. A packed community meeting Thursday night, outburst.
Despite repeated attempts to secure an interview, Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard refused to respond. When I tried to meet with her in person, village employees informed me that she was not in the office and couldn't specify when she would return. The next day, at a packed community meeting, tensions reached a boiling point as residents voiced their frustrations. Henyard's leadership was increasingly questioned, with many community members demanding accountability for the financial mismanagement that had plagued the village. Amidst the growing controversy, Henyard appeared to find new allies in the legal field. Following the firing of her previous top assistant, Keith Freeman, she seemed to be taking steps to shield herself from scrutiny. At a recent board meeting, Henyard's criminal defense attorneys, Bo Brinley and Ed McDavid, were present, sitting alongside the village's attorneys. It was clear that Henyard was preparing for a long legal battle. Brinley, known for his aggressive defense strategies, and McDavid listened closely as the proceedings unfolded, signaling Henyard's efforts to protect herself amid the ongoing FBI corruption investigation. As expected, Henyard maintained her innocence, claiming that she was being unjustly targeted. She accused the trustees of wasting public funds on investigating her, portraying herself as the only one truly working for the community. However, the situation was becoming increasingly complicated by the actions of her administration. Notably, Henyard had appointed L.S. Lacey, a controversial figure who was later fired by the Dolton Village Council for insubordination, to a powerful new role. Lacey's appointment was viewed by many as unlawful, with board members questioning Henyard's decision to elevate someone with such a troubled history. Lacey, who had been involved in legal issues, was arraigned on federal bankruptcy fraud charges, accused of lying under oath to conceal assets and income from creditors. His legal team denied the charges, but the media coverage surrounding his case only added to the cloud of controversy surrounding Henyard's administration. While Henyard had once enjoyed nearly unanimous support from the Thornton Township Board, her silence on Lacey's appointment and the escalating scandals caused fractures within her support base. A whistleblower from the Thornton Board of Trustees came forward, alleging that Henyard had manipulated employees, vendors, and residents to increase her influence. The whistleblower claimed that Henyard had created a false image of success, funded by the hard-working taxpayers of Dolton and Thornton Township. As the situation worsened, Henyard continued to deny any wrongdoing, dismissing her opponents as attention seekers. But as tensions in Dolton remained high, Henyard's latest appointment sparked even more controversy. She appointed Michael A. Smith, a political figure with a long history in South suburban politics, to a top assistant role with a $100,000 annual salary. Smith, 34, was well versed in the law and had been involved in politics for years, but his past raised significant concerns. He had been charged with at least 8 different crimes, ranging from official misconduct to domestic violence. In 2012, Smith was involved in a case where a young trustee in Dixon resigned after pleading guilty to stealing patrol duties and impersonating a police officer. Despite these troubling issues, Henyard appointed Smith without external approval, further deepening concerns about her decision-making. Many saw this as yet another example of Henyard surrounding herself with controversial figures, further alienating both residents and trustees. As Henyard's administration faced mounting criticism, the situation in Dalton became more tense. The financial mismanagement, questionable appointments, and legal troubles only added to the already fragile leadership. The ongoing FBI investigation into her conduct heightened the pressure, leaving many wondering if Henyard's time as mayor was coming to an end. While she refused to step down, her refusal to engage with the community and address growing concerns only fueled distrust and anger among residents, especially in a town already grappling with financial woes. With each controversial decision and action, Henyard seemed to exacerbate the problems rather than offer solutions. As the investigation continued and calls for accountability grew louder, Henyard's grip on power appeared more uncertain. The saga of Tiffany Henyard's leadership in Dalton and Thornton Township was far from over, but with every passing day, her position seemed increasingly precarious.